Hi, hello and welcome. Microbehunter here, or simply Oliver if you will. Today I'm going to be talking about a pretty advanced question. It's about what is life? What is life? The question seems to be quite easily posed, but actually the answer is quite complex. And if you want to believe one of my own university professors over 25 years ago, he said that the question of what life is one of the most difficult questions in biology. Wow. So we're going to be dealing now with one of the most difficult questions in biology. And I'm going to first read out the comment by the viewer of one of my videos first. I hope that we can pick up on a theme, the origin of life, in your videos. In general, I think that we will find that the term life is very poorly defined. For example, I'm sure that everything is always moving. And now he refers to one of the characteristics of life, where movement is one of those characteristics that characterizes life, obviously, that can be ascribed to life. And what the person who wrote this said is, well, if this is one of the characteristics, if this is what we use to define life, well, then almost anything can count as life, because there are many things that move, okay? Clouds move, but they're not alive, right? So the question is really, how do we define life? And I'm going to go back now to the year 1992, to one of my first biology lessons, which was really memorable. It was one of the really interesting lessons. And we talked about this topic, and then the professor, he already unfortunately passed away a long time ago, the professor, he said something quite interesting, and I simply wanted to pass this on to you. He said that life cannot be defined. It is not possible, from philosophical reasons, it's not allowed to define life. And that's kind of interesting. Why not? He said the following: we humans, we consider ourselves alive, okay, obviously. And if we are now to define what life is, then we would be defining ourselves, okay? We would be going in this circle. And this is, from a philosophical standpoint, this is not allowed, okay? You have to find something external that kind of describes what life is, but we cannot define it, because this would mean that we would end up defining ourselves, going in a cycle, not allowed, okay? So therefore, you have nowadays the so-called the characteristics of life. And what I'm going to do now in this podcast is I'm first going to talk about these characteristics, and then later on I'm going to talk a little bit about how it was seen in the 19th century, okay, or 18th century, because they had a different approach again. Okay, nowadays the textbook knowledge, so to say, is the following: you cannot define life, you can only characterize it, and then there is a list of characteristics. And we already talked about movement. Yes, that is correct. It's one of those points. However, there are more. For example, response to stimuli. So living things respond. Even single-celled organisms, even though they do not have a nervous system, they can respond to changes in the environment, to light, to temperature, whatever is necessary for them to survive. Growth is another thing. Living things grow. The ability to reproduce. Living things have a metabolism. This means is they have a biochemistry that's going on. They require energy, okay, and they produce waste and they need food. They maintain homeostasis, and this means that living things have an ability to keep body internal conditions constant. So we humans, for example, have the possibility to maintain our body temperature, okay? Obviously, different organisms, different living things need to maintain different things constant. There are certainly organisms that do not maintain their body temperature, but they maintain something else. So this ability to self-regulate, that is also one of those characteristics. Living things are made of cells, and living things have the possibility to pass on traits to their offspring. And some lists also include, for example, the ability to evolve, evolution, okay? Now, these are characteristics of life, and this list probably can be expanded, okay? So it is like this, that if you pick out one of those things, like, for example, movement, we already picked out, well, you find movement pretty much a lot in the environment, right? But it's not alive. What about the ability to grow? Okay, even that you can find. I mean, a rolling snowball grows, okay? Crystals, non-living, they grow. Clouds can grow, right? Also, for example, being made of cells, even that, I mean, a thing can be made of cells, but it can be dead, okay? It's not alive. Okay, passing traits on or kind of passing on of information. I mean, you can do that with I don't know, computer programs can do that. Yeah, even. Yeah, so and metabolism, even this is an issue because it's a chemical reaction. You find chemical reactions a lot in nature. But one of the things that characterizes life is that life does not only have one of those or few of those items, but all of them. Okay, so living things are characterized because they have all of them. However, and this is where the problem comes, sometimes a few of them or one of them is missing. To give you an example, homeostasis is, no, not homeostasis, let's take metabolism, okay? I mean, there are certain bacteria that form so-called spores or endospores. These are resting stages and they're metabolically not active. And when the conditions are right, then they will become active and form bacteria. Or maybe seeds, metabolically not so active. Right? So you can see that even here there are certain exceptions possible. Not all living things might grow, okay, or reproduce. I mean, there's certain fully differentiated cells in a body, in a human body. They do not divide and grow because they have lost this ability to divide. Or what about red blood cells? In the list we have a passing of traits off to offspring. Well, red blood cells do not even have a nucleus anymore. They don't have DNA because they lost their nucleus because you need the space to fill it with hemoglobin to carry oxygen, right? So red blood cells cannot divide to form more red blood cells. You need a stem cell to do that, right? So are the red blood cells now not alive? Well, yeah. So that is the question, really, right? Actually, probably not, because they don't. Well, I mean, they do certain basic chemical reactions that are necessary, but they do not pass on traits to their offspring because they cannot divide. They cannot reproduce. Therefore, okay. I don't know if they really respond to the environment. I mean, they're just passively carrying the substances. So, wow, are red blood cells now alive or not? Okay, you see, it's getting tricky again. Okay. So, but what I just wanted to mention here is that we have to maybe get away from the idea that there is a clear-cut definition of what life is, but we have to move further more towards the direction of characterization of life. Now, how was it in the 18th, 19th century? What people used to think at that time, there was this so-called the theory of vitalism was there. Because at that time, 19th century around, there was sometimes with some people had a very mechanistic worldview. So basically, some people thought, well, living things and humans are finely tuned robots. Okay, what about that? I mean, is it possible to have to see a human being as a purely mechanical thing? Okay, or chemical thing, right? And so some people at that time said, well, actually, all of those characteristics, all of the living properties, they cannot really be only explained by viewing a human being purely physical and chemical. There must be something more to it, right? A living thing there must be something that sets living things apart from non-living things, right? And what they said is there must be some kind of a vital force there in living things, which causes things to be alive. Okay, but the problem with that is what do you mean vital force? It's not a scientifically measurable entity. Okay, how does this vital force? How many joules does it have, or newtons, or what units are you even going to use? Okay, or this energy of life, what they sometimes called. Okay, I mean, how do you want to measure this? I mean, what is it even, right? So it is this concept of vitalism is scientifically not really graspable, and I think it is not really a scientific concept because you cannot apply the tools of science to measure it. Okay, and as a matter of fact, since the 1930s, the concept of vitalism is seen as being completely outdated. But I just wanted to show you that people at that time, they were thinking about this, and they simply came up with an idea, or not simply really, but they had to come up with an idea, and they were wondering what is the thing that makes living things different from the non-living things, and one of those ideas was the concept of vitalism. There was also a second idea that says that only organic substances can only be made by living things, until Friedrich Wöhrer in 1828, he was able to synthesize an organic substance, urea, out of inorganic substances. Okay, so even that is is possible. So the question, otherwise you could have said, okay, it's alive if it's able to synthesize organic substances, okay? But even that has been shown not to be correct, and it's possible also by having an energy input by radiation and heat and whatever, and electrical discharges, it's possible to make organic substances out of inorganic substances. So that's also possible. It has been done in the lab. So really, the presence of organic materials is also not a characteristic of life. Okay, so I just want to show you here that it's very difficult or to simply pinpoint what life is based on a single characteristic. So that is basically so far almost everything I wanted to say. However, there is another point that I just want to make. And this is that I've seen a TED Talk video which characterized life in the idea that there is an asymmetry in optical isomers in living things. This asymmetry means that living things are made of amino acids, and they're optically or they're chemically possible in two forms, the so-called the L form and the R form. Living things, interestingly, contain amino acids of the L form. So there is this asymmetry present. And the question is where does this asymmetry come from? Because if you have a so-called a wild chemical reaction, you will have both L and R forms being formed, but there is this asymmetry in living things, and it has been proposed that this, if you are able to find somewhere in space, maybe this asymmetry in organic substances, that this could be an indicator for life. This is a huge area of research, and I do not want to go in further details. Well, I think that should wrap it up pretty much. In any case, if you want to have other questions answered, please write me an email. I also want to advertise something a little bit here. I have 2 YouTube channels which are both related to microscopy. And there are links on the web page to both of them. One YouTube channel focuses a lot on microscopic explorations. So what I'll do is I'll put a lot of things that I find in nature under the microscope, while the second YouTube channel is mostly about giving advice to those people who are interested in microscopes. I also have an Amazon web shop with affiliate links. All of the links you can find on my website. And yeah, that's pretty much everything. I wish you all the best. Happy microbe hunting as always, and bye-bye.